Good day, ma'am. We're the group 5. We're presenting the whole chapter of CDI, Crim 105. So, first chapter is juvenile delinquency and juvenile justice system. Next, concept of juvenile delinquency. Juvenile delinquency is the act of sustaining a pattern of delinquency over a long period of time and whose life ay identify or organize around the pattern of deviant behavior. Sinasabi dito, pag sinabi natin juvenile delinquents, ito yung tao yung pinag-uusapan natin. So the next is juvenile delinquency is commonly defined as an act of behavior committed by a minor violates the penal code of government with authority over the area in which in the act of occurred. Dito, sinasabi dito, yung act or yung behavior ng isang tao na nakakapag-commit ng crime under the government. Next. Status offense is an act of behavior that is considered wrong or improper when it is committed, child or a minor. Status offense are not necessarily illegal act because that all status offense are violate in the written law. However, these acts and behavior do not conform to the standard of acceptable behavior for children and therefore they must be controlled and corrected. Ito yung mga bata pa lang nakakapag-commit na sila agad ng crime like cutting classes, running away from home, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, and swearing or using. Nakakapag-commit rin sila ng mga bad language. So status refers to all condition of the being minor or child. Truancy, defined as a having unexpected absences from school for a period of existing 20 days. Dito naman yung nagkakaroon sila ng pagliban sa klase or pag-absent ng 20 days. Next. RA 6809, the lower that the age majority from 21 to 18 years of age. This law took effect on December 13. Sabi dito sa RA 6809, naging lowered yung majority ng 21 to 18 years old. Umepect lang siya ng December 13, 1989. Emancipation. Freedom from parental authority upon reaching the age of majority over both the person and property with the exemption of the contract marriage. Sinasabi dito, once na nag-edad ka ng 18 years old pataas, pwede mo nang gawin yung mga bagay na gusto mo. Pwede ka nang kumbaga ma pwede ka nang magpakasal sa iyong boyfriend. If the person who behave an acceptable manner violate law is a child or minor and is called delinquent child in conflict with the law of CICL. Sinasabi din dito, once na nakapag-commit ng crime yung isang bata, matatawag sila ng delinquent or child in conflict with the law CICL. But if the person who violated the law already an adult and the person is called an offender, once na kumbaga adult ka na, hindi natawag sa iyo si ICL kung hindi offender na once na nakapag-commit ka ng crime. Next. Juvenile delinquency is the on-off behavior. Society of the set, written and unwritten, on the rules so action are permissible or not permissible. The written rules are what we call laws. They tell us what action should be avoided and what action should be done. Failure to obey the laws offers corresponding punishment, which discourages people from violating created with authorities to regulate our action to serve harmony is maintained. Sinasabi dito, kung ano lang yung mga nararapat at mga hindi dapat gawin na kailangan mong sumunod sa batas. Pero once na nakapag-commit ka ng isang punishment or hindi ka sumunod sa batas. So, Next, the unwritten sometimes referred as social norms are those rules that are not written, uh, not proper for being obeyed because of the tradition, custom, culture, and beliefs, although they are not laws. People are expected that obey of the having. Kumbaga, kung yung mga taong mas nakakatanda sa'yo, kailangan mong gumalang or kumbaga once na pumasok ka sa PNP, kung ano yung, kung sino yung mas nakakataas sa'yo, syempre, kailangan mo rin siya ng pagbate. Next. History of juvenile delinquency. Code of Hammurabi. During this time, in 1641, General Court of Massachusetts passed on the stubborn child law, which stated that children who disobey their parents could be put to death. Kumbaga, dito sa Code of Hammurabi, once na hindi ka sumunod sa iyong magulang, ang magiging punishment mo is death penalty or put to death. So sabi sa second, Roman law and canon law, church law made distinction between juvenile and adult based on the notion age of responsibility. Kumbaga, as a juris law, immaturity was be considered in imposing punishment. The corporal punishment prior to puberty, 12 years old for female and 13 years old for male. No capital punishment under 20 years of age. Sabi sa the corporal punishment, pag 12 years old ang babae at 13 years old for male, no corporal punishment. Pero pag under ka ng 20 years old of age, no, kumbaga, pag 19 pababa, no capital punishment. Next. Codification of Roman law. This law resulted in 12 tables. Children cannot classify infants or pero Proximus infant child 7 years old below, they are not held criminally responsible. Puberty above 17 to 14, all for boys, and above 7 to 12 for girls. Liability was based on their capacity to understand the difference between right and wrong. Sabi, dito naman sa codification, kumbaga once na umedad ka na 7 to 14 or 7 to 12, kumbaga, aalamin nila yung difference kung alam mo ba yung tama at mali once na nakapag-commit ka ng crime. Number 5, Anglo-Saxon common law. Under 7 was presumed incapable of forming criminal intent and therefore were not subject of criminal sanction. Children between 17 were not subject to criminal sanction unless it could be demonstrated they have formed to criminal intent. Children 14 years old was treated much the same as adults. Sabi dito, once na nag-edit ka ng 7 years old, once na nakapag-commit ka ng crime, kumbaga hindi mo pa siya intentional. Pero, once na 14 years old ka na sa same adult, kumbaga yung nagawa mong crime is intentional mo na. Next. Middle of 19th century, form anti-social activities called child slavery. Their principle was children was born and good and became bad. Juvenile delinquency were blamed on bad environment. The best way to save children was to get them out of bad place. Sabi dito, yung bata, once na pinanganak siya ng mabuti, tapos kumbaga unti-unti siya nakakagawa ng mali. Kumbaga, kailangan mo tong dito, gawa sa, ay gumawa siya, kumbaga, kumbaga kailangan turuan mo siya ng mga magagandang bagay. This lead to creation of doctrine parents patriarchal thus doctrine viewed who violates the law of the victim of improper care, custody, and treatment home. Sabi dito, once na yung bata, kumbaga hindi siya napapalaki ng maayos ng kanyang magulang or hindi siya, yun nga, kumbaga hindi niya ginagawa ng magulang yung dapat iano sa anak niya. Kumbaga, magiging under siya ng DSWD. Next. 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 The need to control juvenile delinquency. Today's delinquents are tomorrow's criminals. Sabi dito, once na yung once na hindi mo na control yung pagkakamali ng isang bata, madadala niya ito hanggang sa paglaki. Juvenile delinquency prevention refers to the effort arrived by preventing children or minors from committing delinquents act antisocial behavior and ultimately from getting involved illegal and criminal activities. At a young age, it refers to intervening in people's life prior and engaging in delinquents. Prevention of delinquents is not just the duty of government. More importantly, it is the parents who have the greatest responsibility of ensuring that their children are brought up to be productive and God-fearing. Sinasabi dito na kailangan mas kailangan i-prevent yung mga criminal activities na nagkakaroon ng juvenile delinquency kasi kailangan once na umano sila, kailangan itama sila at saka may takot sa Diyos. So that's all for the chapter 1. So the next is chapter 2.
Chapter 2. Brief History of Juvenile Justice and Welfare. History of Juvenile Justice and Welfare. Juvenile justice system refers to the segment of the criminal justice system including law enforcement, the courts, and the correctional agencies designed to treat youthful offenders. Sabi dito, yung law enforcement at yung mga court of correctional agencies na ginawa para sa mga batang nakapag-commit ng crime o tinatawag na youthful offenders. These systems are also designed based on the premise that minor offenders must be treated differently from adult offenders, thus different law and procedure apply to them. Kasi yung iba naman yung batas na ina-apply at procedure sa kanila. Kaya dapat iba rin yung yung trato sa batang offender at sa mga adult offender. The intent is to protect minors from negative effect of being labeled as delinquents or criminals by decriminalizing illegal acts. Next. The minors who are committed the violation of the law will not be subjected to the penalty of the imprisonment but will instead be allowed to continue to live a normal life while undergoing a different individualized treatment. Ito naman yung yung mga bata dapat hindi sila kinukulong o dapat hindi sila makulong. Tapos dapat itrato pa rin sila bilang bata at bigyan sila ng normal na buhay. The aim is not to punish offense made by minors but to help them to understand that what they did was wrong and should not be repeated. By doing so, the minor will become a productive law-abiding adult in the future. Yung mga bata dito, ipapani sila para hindi parusahan at ano, gawan sila ng masama. Ginagawa ito para matuto sila at ipaintindi ang ginawa nilang mali at hindi nila dapat ulitin yung ginawa nila para hindi na sila ma maulit pa sa ginawa nilang mali. Origin of the juvenile justice system dito sa in 35 statute with the mandated appointment of served who place is destitute, neglected or children with the wood of term and agriculture trade from domestic services upward danger. Dito ang tawag dito sa pamamaraan indenture yung mga batang neglected or children na binibigay o binabalik sa kanilang pamilya. Ang ginagawa nito, iti-train yung bata kasama yung pamilya para ano para ano ah, para magtrabaho at about sa agriculture, trade or domestic service, a practice that called ang tawag dito ay indenture. In 1601, system was created wherein church works with the consent of justice of the peace. Sabi dito, yung mga delinquent or neglected children, ginagawa sila as church worker at dito magtatrabaho sila sa isang workhouse hanggang sa maging adult na sila. Next. Poor Law of Act 1601. Ang voluntary separation of children from their improvised parents and these children with the place vantage local presidents apprentice. Dito ay sa pilitan pag-iwalay yung mga bata sa kanilang impoverished parents at sa abusive parents nila. Para i-treat yung mga bata tapos papakainin sila ng tama hanggang sa tumaba tapos aalagaan din sila ng mabuti. Chancery courts created in England to protect property rights, welfare, and minor operated under the philosophy of Chancery courts naman ang tawag dito ay isang korte sa bansang England ginawa para protektahan yung mga magmamay-ari sa karapatan and welfare of minors. This was operated under the philosophy of parens patriae. Development of juvenile justice in the state of America. House of Refuge as a reformatory operated in 1825 at network to protect the indigent children who were the prison by taking them straight performing them in the family-like environment. In what was United States of America, there was first comprehensive court created in 1889. Ang sabi dito, ang itong korte na to ay independent court para sa mga pag-commit ng crime o isang youthful offender na umiidad ng under 16 years old age. Next. Wala pa yung bagal yan. Child welfare and juvenile system. Then the Congress passed Juvenile Justice and Delinquent Prevention Act of 1974. Child welfare and juvenile justice system in the Philippines. Act number 3203 was as first juvenile delinquent took effect on December 3, 1924, became effective 1917. Soon after, this was amended by Act number 3559 on November 26, and then again Article of 80 of the RPC. Act number 33 is amended again siya ulit ng Article 80 RPC in 1932. Created welfare institution which took the responsibility of taking charge of a government child care institution home for the aged as well as Philippines training school boys. Next. Provision of revised penal code. During this time, distinct circumstances of delinquent are not taken into account. No diversion. Hindi iniwalay yung diversion, hindi iniwalay yung mga bata na nag-commit ng crime sa adult. Stigma of criminality, no provision or after as young 9 years old can be incarcerated inside the jail. A person under 9 years of exempted. As young 9 years old, kapag nakapag-commit ka ng crime, pwede ka na lang ikulong sa kulungan. And before this law, a person 9 years of age are exempted criminal liability. A person is not over 9 years old and under 15 who acted with disarmament criminality. Pag sinabi natin disarmament, alam mo na yung tama at mali. Nasa gustong gulang ka na. Take note, is not already applicable. 3. Presidential degree known as a and youthful code. Approved on December 10, 1974 during the administration of former Presidential Ferdinand Marcos and became effective 6 months. Ay nga, nag-effective siya ng 6 months effective siya ng 6 months. Those child over 9 years, 9 but under 21 years old at the commission of offense committed crime is also known as a youthful offender. Ang tawag nga dito sa youthful offender, kapag ikaw ay nakapag-commit ng crime, ay pag ikaw ay umiidad ng 9 but under 21, ibig sabihin over 9 that is 10 years old up to 20 years old in the commission of the crime. Tawag sa iyo ay youthful offender. At ito ay under ng PD 603. Next. Tagal. Provision PD 603. At a child 9 years age and under exempted from criminal liability shall be committed can his care his of or her mother or nearest relative or family friend in consideration of the court and subject to supervision. Sabi dito, kapag ikaw ay isang bata tumiidad ng 9 years old pababa, ikaw ay exempted sa kahit anong criminal liability. Ang gagawin lang sa'yo, ibabalik ka sa iyong nanay at tatay kapag wala kang magulang sa relatives o kaya sa family friends mo for supervision. 15 years old and above, criminal liable. Take note, PD 117 amended some provision in PD 603 under the said law. It depends the youthful offender as a child, a minor, or youth, including one who emancipated in accordance with the law who is over 9 but under 18 at the time commission of the offense. Yung inaamin niya dito yung definition ng youthful offender. Ayon kay PD 1179 ay isang child or offense youthful offender. Pinababa nga dito ni PD 1179 ng criminal liability from 20 years old ginawa niyang 18 years old and 17 years old pababa ang tawag sa sa'yo is youthful offender. Next. RA 7610, known as the Special Protection Child Against Abuse, Exploitation and Discrimination Act and more, referred Anti-Abuse Law, enacted June 17, 1999. Yung mga crime na pinapangalagaan niya dito para sa mga kabataan nito, yung mga crime na pinaparusahan kapag kinumit sa isang bata, that is under RA 7610. Take note, tas yung mga pinaparusahan nga dito yung yung itong child prostitution and sexual abuse, child trafficking, child pornography, and child labor. Take note, the provision of 7610, child labor or children, later 7658, and act prohibiting employment children 15 years old 15 years old in public undertaking, which approved November 9, 1993 Presidential Fidel Ramos, an act providing the elimination workforce of child labor and affording stronger protection for the working children. Dito na dito pinagbabawal na magtrabaho ang mga kabataan na umiidad ng 14 years old below, mapa-public man o private. Under sa tsaka sa undertaking agency. Ang inamend na nitong 7658 ay ang child labor working children at naprobahan nito ng November 9, 1931. 1931. Tapos yung RA 7658 amended ulit sa by RA 9231. RA 58852, otherwise known as Domestic Adoption of 1998, enacted on February 25, 1998. RA 8043, RA 8043, the Intercountry Adoption Act, enacted on June 7, 1995. RA 79208, otherwise known as Anti-Trafficking in Person Act of 2003, enacted on May 26, 2003. This law qualified the crime of trafficking in person when the victim is child on February 6, 2013, and amendatory to law RA 9208 was passed, and this is RA 10364, expanded Anti-Trafficking in Person Act of 2012. RA 9262, otherwise known as the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004, approved March 8, 2004. This law provides protection for children from abuse. Ito yung batas na ginagawa para protektahan yung mga kabataan at yung mga kababayan sa mga abuse parents or relatives nila. Next. RA 9344, otherwise known as the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act, approved on April 28, 2018, and become effective on May 14, 2006. Yung RA 9334, amended siya ng provisions PD 603. According here in this law, 15 and below, if the child age 15 or below, he or she are exempted for criminal liability. Take note, under RA 934 RA RA 934 for juvenile delinquent are called in conflict with the law. The use word of juvenile delinquent, youthful offender, or other similar terms against the child, labeling or shaming punishable under this law. Dito nga napalitan na yung youthful offender, napalitan na siya ng child in conflict with the law. Tapos ang nangyayari dito sa atin, napakataas na ngayon ng bilang ng kabataan ng nabibiktima ng pornography. RA 9775 Anti-Child Pornography. Ito na nga yun, is this law. Next na pa. RA 10630, an act establishing a comprehensive juvenile justice and welfare system, creating the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Council under the Department of Social Welfare and Development, appropriating funds thereof and for other purposes. Ibig sabihin dito sa batas na to, yung mga namamalaga sa mga batang nakapag-commit ng crime is under na sila ng DSWD. At ito ay naprobahan noong October 3, 2013. It provided for the certain of bahay pag-asa, enumerated what are defined as a serious crime committed by children who are exempt from the criminal responsibility and modified the procedure for the children in conflict with the law. Age range from bahay pag-asa. Pag sinabi natin bahay pag-asa, ito yung lugar na kung saan dinadala yung mga batang nakapag-commit ng crime. Kapag ang isang bata ay nakapag-commit ng serious crime, halimbawa yung crime against person, infanticide, parasite, murder, etc. Tapos kapag yung edad ng bata ay from above 12 to 15 years of age. Okay po, ma'am. Next na. This is the end of whole chapter 2.
No, naririnig ako. Chapter 3. Periods of development and their significance to juvenile delinquency. Next. Next. Concept of human development. Development is a process that produces a progressive series of orderly and coherent change which lead to end with maturity. Dito yung pag-develop ng isang tao simula fetus hanggang sa tumanda siya. Pwede siyang biological changes, social changes, o physical changes or psychological changes. Development is caused by two interacting factors. Heredity, nature. It is the transmission of traits from parents to offspring through the genes. Ito yung pagpapasa ng mga traits ng magulang dun sa kanilang mga environment, nurture. It includes all the forces that influence man's. Heredity brings about development through the process of maturation, which is the unfolding of the heredity potential, while the process of development that occurs through the medium environment is called. Ito yung pag-mature ng isang tao. Next, the role of the genetics in development. Genetics is the science of heredity. Genes contain the traits of both father and mother, and that is why genes are called the carrier of heredity. Yung genes, yung sinasabing tawag sa kanya carrier of heredity. Ito yung genetics, ito yung mga yung reason kung bakit yung mga nanay at tatay natin, yung mga kamukha natin, tapos yung mga ibang pagalian nila o yung ibang physical things nila na nakukuha natin. The genes dictate the totality of the qualities of the person, physical, intellectual, moral, social, from that moment of his conception. Sabi sa genes na yung halos lahat ng katangian, yung physical, intellectual, moral, social, and psychological, nag-uumpisa dun sa pagbubuo pa lang nung isang bata. Periods of development, period. The prenatal period starts from conception and lasts after birth. Yung prenatal period, nag-uumpisa to dun sa simula pa lang sa sperm cell tsaka dun sa egg cell. Doon siya nag-uumpisa. Then meron tatlong type ng prenatal period. Germinal stage, embryonic stage, tsaka fetal stage. Conception marks the beginning of our development into human being. Conception or fertilization is the union of sperm cell and egg cell, and it takes place within 12 to 36 hours from the time of sexual intercourse. Conception can only be happen when there is a mature egg cell or ovum in the uterus and when the sperm is healthy enough to yung conception or fertilization, nag-uumpisa siya dun sa una muna siya sa sexual intercourse nung tapos yung sperm cell ng lalaki tas sa pagkakaroon nila ng sa pagkano nila ng sexual intercourse ng babae. Pag nakakapasok na yung sperm cell dun sa egg cell, 12 to 36 hours lang para mabuo yung conception. Next. Tapos kailangan matured pala yung Ayan, ito yung picture. Ito yung mabula, ay may yung bilog na malaki, ayun yung egg cell. Tapos yung mga maliliit, sila yung mga sperm cell. Next. Once ovum has been fertilized, it's called zygote. The first 2 weeks following conception is the germinal stage. The zygote is implanted or touch the wall of the uterus, the embryonic stage begins. Once ovum has been fertilized. Pag yung ovum sa babae, pag na-fertilize siya, tawag na doon zygote. The first 2 weeks is 2 weeks of the conception, tawag doon is germinal stage. Tapos yung zygote, pagka na or attach the wall of the uterus, the embryonic stage begin. Doon pala mag-uumpisa yung embryonic stage. Pag yung zygote is implanted or attach the wall of the uterus. The embryonic stage covers the 2nd to 8th week following conception. Yung gap ay sa araw ng embryonic stage. Simula 2nd week to 8th week. At this stage, the zygote is now called embryo. Dun sa 2nd to 8th weeks, ang tawag doon is yung embryo. And it is the stage that the organs such as bones, muscle, spinal cord, eyes, heart, arms, and legs and faces begin to develop. And because this is the time when the basic organs are formed, this is the stage when most birth defects occur. So dito sa 2 to 8 weeks, dito na nabubuo yung sinasabi yung mga kamay, paa, tapos mata, yung physical features, yung bungo, tapos sinasabi din na dito madalas yung mga may depekto, yung minsan yung may mga kulang-kulang, yun, yung mga sobra sa kamay, sobra sa paa. Next. The periodic covering the 8 week after conception until the baby is born is a fatal phase. So simula dun sa embryo na 2 week to 8 week. Etong naman, 8 weeks to after the conception until the baby is born. Ang tawag dun is fetal stage. During this stage, the fetus continues to form the rest of the organs. By 6 months, the fetus already has functioning lungs. So during the birth signal of the fetal stage and the fetus now becomes a newborn. So dito sa stage na to na fetal stage, dito na nabubuo yung ibang organs yung fetus. By 6 months and the fetus has already functioned. Tapos within 6 months meron na siyang functioning lungs, the birth. This during the embryonic stage and the fetal stage that the developing individual is especially vulnerable to toxic agents and chemical. This includes certain medication, illegal drugs, alcohol, nicotine, as well as certain virus and bacteria vulnerable to toxic agents. So dito sa sa during during embryonic stage and saka sa fetal stage, dapat uh, iwasan muna yung mga yung drugs, alcohol, nicotine, paninigarilyo, yung pag-inom ng alak, yung ibang chemicals na makaka-apekto sa bata kasi may effect yun may effect yun sa kanila kasi these harmful elements can cause serious birth defects in form of physical abnormalities such as brain damage and put the child greater risk for developing other physical and psychological problems in the future. Dito, ito nga yung sinasabi na kailangan may yung mga minsang nagiging epekto ng mga hindi yung mga pagka habang nagbubuntis kung ano yung mga na gamot na hindi naman nireseta ng doktor. Bali mangyayari dun is makaka-apekto yun sa physical na katawan nila o sa mental. Significance of prenatal period to juvenile delinquency. Aside from genetics, the parents, especially the mother, are greatly responsible for the kind of individual the person will be. The lifestyle and the habits of the mother during her pregnancy will greatly affect the condition of the child, such as the following. Use of illegal. Ito yung mga yung sinasabi na yung ina yung magiging responsible sa bali hindi naman ina kasi kailangan hindi rin na nahayaan ng asawa niya na kung ano-ano yung pinagkagawa ng nanay. So ito yung mga makaka-apekto. Use of illegal drugs, smoking, nicotine, paninigarilyo, drinking alcohol, beverage, yung pag-iinom, use of medical without the advice of doctors, yung pag-inom ng mga gamot na hindi naman nireseta ng doktor, exposure to virus and bacteria such as chicken pox, measles. Ito yung mga sakit na yung mga nagkakasakit na habang nagbubuntis. Gaya ng chicken pox at measles. Next. Maternal stress caused by problems. 7. Not taking food supplements and the vitamins. Yung 8. Not eating nourishing foods, being in a violent environments, exposure to harmful chemicals. These are some situations during pregnancy that can have lifelong negative effects, whether physical or psychological. Ito yung mga binanggit ko yung mga ano, magiging ano, makakasama din sa bata na physical or psychological. When any of this happen, there is possibility that the child will grow up having physical deformity, psychological disorder that can make him feel inferior to others, develop him in low self-esteem, and eventually cause aggressive behavior and violent tendencies. So, pag nangyari itong mga di inaasahang kunyari may mga mga effects ng mga hindi magandang ano sa bata, ano, magi-resulta to sa paglaki nila na maababa ng ano nila, low self-esteem kasi kung sakaling magkaroon sila ng ano, ng diferensya, psychological man o physical, siyempre 'di ba magiging iba dating nun kasi hindi nila gawa yun. Early and late childhood. Early childhood starts from 2 years old to 6 years old, while late childhood is 6 years old to around 12 years old. Puberty makes the end of childhood and signals the beginning of adolescence. So, early early childhood nag-uumpisa sa 2 years old to 6 years old. Tapos late childhood nag-uumpisa sa 6 na taong gulang tsaka sa 12 taong gulang. Yung puberty, yung ano, puberty is the end of childhood and the beginning of adolescence. Emotional change during early childhood. Emotion are especially intense during early childhood. The most common emotion during this person are anger, fear, jealousy, curiosity, envy, joy, grief, and affection. Ito yung mga nagiging emotion during early childhood ng mga bata. Next. Next. Emotional change during childhood. Older children soon discover that expression of emotion, especially unpleasant emotion, is socially unacceptable. As a result, older children acquire a strong incentive to learn to control the outward emotion, especially anger. Dito sa emotion ng during late childhood, natututo na silang mag-control ng emotions nila. Social, kanina, emotional change. Ito naman, social change during early childhood. The early childhood is called the pre-gang age. The foundation for socialization are laid as the number of contact young children have with their peers increase. Children who prefer interacting with people develop are skilled than those who limited interaction. Ito yung point na yung bata is nakikipag-socialize din sa iba. Sa ibang mga kalaro niya, naghahanap siya ng mga kalaro. Next. Social change during late childhood. Late childhood is often referred to as the gang age. So kanina yung social change na during early childhood is pre-gang age. Ito naman, gang age. Because it is characterized by interest in peer activities and increasingly strong desire to be an accepted member of the children's gang. Older than older children are the longest satisfied to play at home alone or with siblings or to do. Ito hindi na nasasatisfy yung mga bata na makipaglaro sa mga bata na makipaglaro sa kapatid niya kasi mas gusto niya na yung kalaro yung ibang bata. Yung kagustuhan, minsan gumagawa pa sila ng parang para lang makalaro. Next, moral development during early childhood. Moral development in early childhood is on a low level. The reason for this is that young children's intellectual has not yet reached the point where they can learn or apply abstract principle of right and wrong. So dito sa moral development during early childhood. Ito yung yung di pa nila alam yung pinag-aaralan pa nila yung kung ano yung tama at mali. Moral development during late childhood. One of the important development tasks of late childhood is the development of conscience. Ito sa moral development of late childhood, ito yung nagkakonsensya na sila kasi nakikita na nila na mali ito, yung isang bagay yung ginagawa nila hindi tama. Ito yung alam na nila yung, hindi nila nalalaman yung mga tama at maling ginagawa. Next. Ano ko? Significance of the childhood period on juvenile delinquency. The childhood period is very important to development. The foundation laid during childhood period development will take during an adjustment that child will capable of in later life. Happy childhood is believed to be a good predictor of how well well the child would adjust in later life. In the same manner, traumatic experience in childhood have the potential of affecting the emotional emotional, cognitive, and social development of the child, which can affect um, adulthood. At yung mga yung mga nakaka-apekto, yung mga parang important ng childhood sa bata kung yung bata is yung nung bata pa siya is masaya siya. Magiging maganda to kasi matibay yung matibay yung matibay yung pagkatao niya, tapos lagi siyang masaya, matututo ka agad siya na makipagsalamuha. Pero kung bata is ano nakaranas ng trauma o pang-aabuso, makaka-apekto yung paglaki niya kasi mahirapan siya makisalamuha, hindi kaagad siya makakahanap ng mga kaibigan pagdatanda niya. Next. Puberty and adolescence. Adolescence is a development period lasting from about age 12 to 18, during which may biological, cognitive, social, emotional, and personality traits change from childlike to adult-like. It is the period when between childhood and adulthood, also called the transition period. Ito yung puberty and adolescence. Ito yung sa adolescent. Ito yung tinatawag na transition period, yung yung pagtapos nila doon sa childhood. Ito yung habang nagiging binata na sila, ganun. Physical change. Puberty, on the other hand, refers to a development period between the age 9 and 17, when individual experience significant biological change that result in developing secondary sexual characters in reaching sexual maturity. Ito yung nagkakaroon na sila ng mga balbas tuloy. Ito yung mga nagiging matured na yung mga secondary sexual nila. Nagde-develop na yung mga ibang sexual characteristics. Next. Puberty is the time when the sex organs mature and boys and girls become capable of reproducing. Ito yung nagmamature na o nakakapag-produce na yung kaya namang produce ng girl, ang lalaki at babae. Starts of menstruation marks at the beginning of puberty for girls. Tapos which usually happens at age 11 to 13 years old. Yung 11 to 13 years old para sa babae, ito yung nag-uumpisa na sila magkaroon ng regla. This is when they start producing sperm cells, usually between age 14 to 16. Sa lalaki naman, ito yung 14 to 16 years old, nag-uumpisa na sila mag-produce ng sperm cell. Next. Secondary secondary sex characteristics. Boys, facial hair on the upper lip and on the chin. Yung mga balbas tsaka bigote. Sa girls, absence of facial hair, rougher and thicker skin sa boys. Sa girls, finer and smoother skin. Sa boys, thicker body hair in the arms, legs, and other parts of the body. Ano yung sa buhok, sa kilikili, sa katawan, sa sa leeg, sa paa. Finer body hair all over the body. Sa boys, thicker pubic hair. Sa girls, finer pubic hair. Sa boys, presence of Adam's apple. Wala ako eh. Uh, Girls, absence of Adam's apple. Boys, unified hair. Girls, prominent breasts. Sa boys, broader shoulder. Sa girls, narrower shoulder. Sa boys, flatter buttocks. Sa girls, fuller buttocks. Boys, defined muscles. Sa girls, undefined muscles. Sa boys, low pitch boys. Sa girls, high pitch boys. Next. All these changes are brought about by hormones produced by the gonads, the glands responsible for the reproduction of male and female hormones. Ito yung mga pagbabago na yun, dahil sa about by hormones, sa hormones. Hormones are chemicals secreted by different glands that make up the endocrine system. Different glands produce different kinds of hormones that affect bodily function, including labor. The hormones that are most influential in adolescent behavior are the sex hormones. For males, these are testes, while for females are ovaries. Testosterone is dominant male hormones, while estrogen is dominant female hormones. This is the reason why males and females look, think, and feel different. Next. Next. Gonads are the male and female primary reproductive organs. The male gonads are the testes, and the female gonads are ovaries. These reproductive system organs are necessary for sexual reproduction as they are responsible for the production of male and female gametes. What does the endocrine system do? Endocrine is the collection glands release hormones into the bloodstream. This lets the hormones travel to cells in other parts of the body. The endocrine hormones help to control mood, growth, and development, the way our organs work, metabolism, and reproduction. Yung endocrine system, ito yung nagiging, yung reason kung bakit, yung nagko-control ng mood natin, paglaki, pag-develop ng o tsaka pag-work ng organ natin, metabolism and reproduction. Next. So, ito yung endocrine system. Picture. Image. Next. Emotional and cognitive change. Aside from physical change, the child also undergoes significant emotional and cognitive change during the adolescent period. These changes are also influenced by the same hormones that cause the physical change. At the same time, this is due to the fact that the part of human brain cells brain responsible for clear thinking and reasoning is still underdeveloped during this period. This part is the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex, or PFC, is the cerebral cortex covering the front part of the frontal lobe. This brain region has been implicated in planning complex cognitive behavior, personality expression, decision making, and moderating social behavior. Next, common characteristics of adolescent boys and girls. Boys tends to resort to aggressive behavior. Girls start acting demurely. Boys become short-tempered and moody. Yung magiging nagsipasensya. Girls become sensitive and moody. Boys rush. Girls impulsive and moody. Boys prone to thrill-seeking activities. Girls starting having romantic notion. Boys carefree and easy-go-lucky. Girls become shy. Next, social change. During childhood, the most important people in a child's life are his parents and family. When the child becomes an adolescent, there's sudden shift in priorities. So ito yung sa social change, ito yung sa sa childhood nila, ang important sa kanila yung family lang nila, yung parents, brothers, father. Tapos pag tumatanda na sila, nagkakaroon na sila ng iba't ibang priorities. Naghahanap na sila ng mga magiging gusto nilang gawin, marating sa ng pangarap nila. This is also the time when they start getting into romantic relationship with the opposite sex. Ito yung pag social case, ito yung naghahanap na din sila ng mga ano, relationship, romantic relationship sa opposite sex. Next. Significance of the adolescent period of juvenile delinquency. The combination of physical, emotional, and social changes have a significant influence on the adolescent's behavior. It should be pointed out that he experienced all these simultaneously, which can be a problem if he is unable to cope up with them. Firstly, the physical change have a great impact on his self-image. This is especially true for girls because they start feeling conscious of how she looks and start comparing herself with the other girls when she feels is not pretty to her is not. Ito yung yung nagiging curious na siya kung anong itsura niya, kung ano yung gusto niya, yung may karoon niya nagiging nagiging na siya sa kung ano siya, kung ano siyang sa looks niya, kung ano yung looks niya. Next. Her body is not developing the way she wants it. Her skin is not as flawless. She starts developing low self-esteem, which is dangerous at this period. As for boys, he starts comparing himself with other boys regarding their build body. Sa mga lalaki naman, ito yung sa height, laki ng katawan, yung pinaka-standard talaga ng kung ano yung isang lalaki na gusto na rin nilang ma-achieve, kaya nagiging curious sila kung paano yung pagtingin na yan. Next. Secondly, adolescent may feel overwhelmed by all this sudden change in his body that his mind is confused and his emotion become a mass of feeling even he himself could not understand and explain. He starts feeling pressure from different expectations that he has for himself and those that are the people around of him. He then starts to withdraw from the people who used to be the center of his universe, his parents and family. Lastly, because of his desire to be with other people, there is likelihood that he would fall into bad company. The influence of peers and pull the pull of what is prohibited are just too hard to resist at this point in a person's life. Next, chapter 4.
This is the chapter 4, Theories on Juvenile Delinquency. Theories on juvenile delinquency. Theory is a set of statements devised to explain behavior, events, or phenomenon, especially one that has been repeatedly tested and widely accepted. Bakit daw may iba't ibang behaviors yung events or phenomena? Approaches towards delinquency. One biogenic approach attributes delinquent behavior to physical effects and biological causes within the individual himself. Ito daw yung may mga possibility na namana niya yung gantong behavior sa kanyang mga magulang. Tungkol ito sa mga physical effects, psychological, and biological causes. Nakapokus ito sa physical. Psycho, part 2. Psychogenic approach focuses on the mental and emotional factors that cause an individual to act the way he does. Ang focus naman ito sa mental and emotional factors kung bakit isang bata ay nagkakaroon ng delinquent behavior. 3. Sociogenic approach. Cite the various social and environmental influences are as responsible for one's behavior. Tumutukoy naman ito sa social and environmental influences sa mga nakapaligid sa kanya. The classical school theoretical explanation of juvenile delinquency. The principle of free will. It held that human behavior was a matter of choice because it was that people had free will to choose their behavior. Those who violate the law were motivated by personal needs such as greed, revenge, survival, hedonism. Alam naman natin na yung classical school theory ay nakapokus sila sa crime not to the criminal. Dahil naniniwala sila na may kalayaan pumili yung tao kung anong sila. Kumbaga, pag yung mga magbabiolate ng law, utilitarians, those who believe that people weigh the benefits and consequences of their future action before deciding on a course of behavior. Ito yung mga tao na tinitignan muna kung ano yung cause bago nila gawin yung isang bagay. Classical criminology holds that this decision to violate the law or weigh against possible punishment and to deter crime the pain of punishment must outweigh the benefit of illegal gain led to graduated punishments. Based on seriousness of the crime, let the punishment fit the crime. Classical criminology, ginagawa yung parusa in public upang maging tanda para sa mga nagbabalak mag-commit ng crime at hindi na ulitin ng ibang tao. A choice theory holds that youth will engage in delinquent and criminal behavior after the weighing the consequences and benefits of their actions. Delinquent behavior is a rational choice made by motivated offender who perceive that the chance gain outweigh any possible punishment or loss. Choice theory is based on classical school of criminology that views an individual as having free will in choosing his action that calculate what he will gain or lose if he commits an act. In simple words, it theories that when a child or person commits an illegal act with aware that he is doing in wrong but still choose to do it because he believed that he will not get caught. Example, vandalism. Ito yung mga alam niyang mali pero mas pinipili niyang gawin dahil sa mga nakukuha niyang pleasure, kasiyahan. Yun, tulad ng vandalism. Alam naman ng minor na mali ang magsulat sa property ng ibang tao. Pero ginagawa pa rin nila dahil sa mga pleasure o excitement na gusto nilang makuha sa sarili nila. Controlling delinquency. General deterrence. Crime control policies depend on the fear of criminal penalties such as long prison sentences for violent crimes. The aim is to convince law violators that the pain outweighs the benefit of criminal activity. General deterrence, ibig sabihin general, ano yun? Ibig sabihin pangkalahatan. Ibig sabihin, pagbibigay takot sa lahat, sa mga tao kumbaga upang hindi na mag-commit ng crime yung tao na magbabalak pang mag-commit para matakot. Yan. Specific deterrence, sending convicted offenders to secure incarceration facilities so that punishment is severe enough to convince offenders not to repeat their criminal activity. Specific, kung general ay para sa mga taong hindi pa nakakommit ng crime. Specific naman ay para sa taong nag-commit na o nakaranas na ng punishment na ganito ang mangyayari kapag gumawa pa ulit siya ng crime at di niya kailangan ulitin pa. Positivist school theoretical explanation of criminal delinquency. Positivist criminology views behaviors stemming as from biological, psychological, and social factors. Here are key features of this approach. Ito naman yung mga ito naman nakafocus sila sa criminal not to the crime dahil naniniwala sila maraming factors na pwedeng maka-impluwensya sa isang tao. Bakit sila nakakapag-commit ng crime, especially sa mga kabataan? One, human behavior is controlled by physical, mental, and social factors, not by free will. Ang behavior daw ng tao ay nakokontrol niya by physical, mental, and social factors, hindi dahil sa free will. 2. Criminals are different from non-criminal. 3. Science can be used to discover the cause of crime and to treat deviance. So nung lumabas yung positivist school, marami nang lumabas na scientific methods na nagbibigay explanation para sa behavior ng tao. Biological theory. This is a set of theories revolve around the idea that individuals are predisposed to commit crime because the juvenile has inherited certain biochemical and genetic factors and is predisposed to commit crime. This theory originates from Cesar Lombroso, who developed the theory of criminal atavism, Garofalo, and Ferry. Ang biological theory daw, nakapokus naman to sa set ng theory na nakapokus sa individual. Na kaya daw makakakumit ang mga juvenile o mga bata ng wrong property behavior dahil daw ito ay namamana as biochemical and genetic factors. Trait theory holds that youth engage in delinquent or criminal behavior due to aberrant physical or psychological traits that govern behavior choices. Delinquent action are impulsive, intellectual rather than rational choices. Delinquency to biological and psychological traits that control human development. Ang trait theory, ito daw ay kaya nagkakaroon ng improper behavior dahil sa mga physical defects o dahil sa psychological effects. May dalawang uri yung trait theory na one, biosocial. Biosocial theories, the view that both thought and behavior have biological and social basis focusing on the physical qualities of offender. That onset antisocial behavior concentrated in three distinct areas. Biochemical daw ay kaya nagkakaroon ng pagbabago ang bata dahil sa kanilang hormones. Hormones change, physical change, and emotional change. At isa rin daw iyon sa mga rason kung bakit nagkakaroon ng delinquency behavior. 2. Neurological. Neurological theory, ang hindi normal na pag-iisip ay naapektuhan talaga ang kanyang pag-uugali. At ang mga batang abnormal at slow learner ay kasama sa antisocial behavior. Genetic. Ang genetic naman ay kaya nagkakaroon ng delinquent behavior dahil ito ay sa namamana sa kanilang mga magulang. Arousal theory. It has long been suspected that obtaining thrills is a motivator of crime. Adolescents may engage in such crimes as shoplifting and vandalism simply because they offer the attraction of getting away with delinquency is a thrilling demonstration of personal competence. May mga ganun kasi talagang mga bata na the more mas thriller, mas excite sila gawin yung mga bagay kahit pinagbabawal. Mas gagawin nila yun. Psychological theories. It views delinquency as a result of emotional and mental disturbance of the individual. It is the contemporary equivalent of the psychogenic approach and psychological determinism positivist theories of criminology. It has three sub-theories: psychodynamic, behavioral, and cognitive. Psychodynamic theory by Sigmund Freud. Ito yung id, the unrestrained primitive seeking component with which each child is born. Ito yung bata pa lang tayo, may pleasure o may kasiyahan na tayo, made nito. Ito yung like we like it or not, kusa siya lumalabas. Kung magugutom ka, kakain ka. Kung saka mauuwaw, iinom ka. And syempre, if we want sexual intercourse, kusa tayong may libugan. Kumbaga ito yung nagbibigay sa atin ng pleasure o kasiyahan. Ego develops through the reality of living in the world and helps and manage and restrain the id's need for immediate gratification. Si ego ang nagbibigay sa demand ni id. Kumbaga siya yung nagdesisyon depende sa gustong ibigay ni id. Kumbaga si ego yung magiging guideline upang maging tama yung gagawin natin. So pre-ego, yun nga daw kaya it develops through interaction with parents and other significant people and represent develop of morals shared by most adults. Yun nga daw, kaya daw tayo nakagawa ng mali kasi hindi natin si id without consequences na pwedeng mangyari pag lagi nating sinusunod si id. May mga social structure theories, i-report ni Lacuesta.
Social structure theories refers not only to the physical features of the communities, but also the way society is organized, including such things as level of poverty and employ- employment and the amount of crowded housing which are believed to affect behavior and attitudes of individuals, which is turn, turn also called social environment. It composed of social disorganization, strain, and culture, cultural deviance. Ang social ang social structure is ang ang teorya ng struktura ng lipunan ay binibigyan din ng kahirapan. Ang kawalan sila ng pag-aaral at wala silang nasimulan at kung ano yung nasilayan nila, yun na yung katuluyan nilang hanggang dulo. At hindi sila nag-aaral. Social disorganization theory. Popularized by Clifford Shaw and Henry Mackay, according to this theory, crime in urban areas are more prevalent because residents have impersonal relationship with each other, increase in the number of broken families and single parenthood are also very common in disorganized. Ang social disorganization theory, ito naman po yung ang teorya ay nakatuon din sa pananaw ng mga layunin para sa katayuan. Inaasahan ito ng mga klase kaysa sa pagtuon sa pera. Bale hindi sila makakilos kapag kapag wala silang pera at parang nabubuhay sila sa pera. Ang strain theory refers to the individual's frustration, anger, and resentment, hold that crime is a function of the conflict between the goals people have and the means they can use to legally obtain them. This is also argues that the ability to obtain these goals class independent members of the lower class are unable to achieve these goals which come easily to those belonging to the upper class. Ang strain ang strain theory ay pina 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 ano tawag dito strain. Ang teorya ay nakatuon din sa pananaw ng mga layunin para sa katayuan, inaasahan at klase kaysa sa pagtuon ng pera. Ang halimbawa ng theory na 'to ay gumagamit ng illegal na droga para magawa nilang kanilang gusto o kaya tungkulin. At at sa isang estudyante na sinasakyan ng kanyang kapantay o wakasan ng pag-iigpit ang dulot nito. Next tol. Gpar, sa'yo yan eh. Ay. Neutralization theory, introduced by David Matza and Gresham Sykes, sometimes referred as drift theory. According to this theory, people know when they are doing something wrong. However, they rationalize and justify their action. This rationalization is what we call neutralization. The process of becoming delinquent is a learning experience in which potential delinquents and criminal master techniques that enable them to counterbalance conventional behavior. Ang neutralization theory naman para para po ito sa mga kabataan na kailangan nilang gampanin o kung anong nasa batas upang hindi makagawa ng krimen o pang masamaing gawain. Social learning theory. Delinquency is learned through close relationship with assert that children are born good and learn to be bad from others. Suggests that adolescents learn the techniques and attitudes of crime from close and intimate relationship, and delinquents first delinquency is a learned behavior. Ang social learning theory naman, para sa kabataan, kailangan nilang wag baliwalain ang batas at bigyan pansin at obligasyon para hindi makagawa ng krimen. Next tol.
Chapter 5: Contributory Factors of Juvenile Delinquency. The different theory on juvenile delinquency identify. Different theory of delinquency identify the various factors of the cause children of commit delinquency, act their biological, psychological, environmental causes of all this is the family of considered to be biggest contributory factor is it is because parent factor in the cause of identity. Dito, ang mga magkakaiba ng theory about sa delinquency ay kinikilala ng iba't ibang kadahilanan na sanhi ng mga bata o pagkakamali ng mga bata sa mga kilos nila. May mga sanhi na biological, psychological, environment. Sa lahat ng ito, ang pamilya ay itinuturing na pinakamalaking salik o risk na nagbibigay ng contribution. Ito ay ang mga kadahilan ng mga magulang sa lahat ng mga pamilya. So, aside from the family, another very important factor, role of the school is second home or the child. There is also the very influential mass media. And finally, the unitary factor, which is generic term of passes a variety and contributory factors. Wala to, both sa pamilya dito, ay, ang isang pinakamahalagang kadahilanan ng papel ng paaralan bilang pangalawang tahanan ng bata ay mayroong may impluwensya sa mass media at sa wakas ng mga pagkakasya ng kadahilan. So, di ba, kaya nga second home natin yung eskwelahan para mas matuto rin tayo at magkaroon ng kaalaman. Contributory factor of juvenile delinquency. Una ay ang pamilya. being the foundation of the nation basic social institution which public policy cherishes and protect. Dito sa pamilya, ang pundasyon, siya ang pangunahing institusyon ng panlipunan na pinapahalagahan ng ng pan, ng patakarang publiko ng lahat. Next. Nuclear family. It consists the mother, father, and their biological or adopted descendants, traditionally family. So dito sa nuclear family, ito yung mga pamilyang kumpleto at saka kumbaga traditional yung makikita mo may mga tatay, may anak. Single parent family, ito yung mga sa single parent family, ito yung mga magulang na sila lang ang bumubuhay, sila lang yung nagiging pundasyon ng isang pamilya kasama ang mga anak nila. Extended family, ito naman yung sa two or more adults, unlike generation of a family household. It consists of more than parents of children, includes parent, children's, cousin, aunts, uncles, and grandparents. So dito sa extended family, kumbaga sa isang bahay, magkakasama sila yung pamilya nyo, mama at papa, mga kapatid, pinsan, tito, mga lolo. Yun. Children's childless family, but a family whatever reason never had a children step family and who to separate families merge into one. So dito naman sa merge sa childless family, dito yung mga pamilyang hirap sila magka-anak, yung mga pamilyang wala talaga, hindi sila makabuo ng anak. Sa next is grandparents family is when one more grandparents is raising their grandchild. So yun dito naman yung mga kumbaga isa sila yung mga lolo't lola nila yung mga nagbabantay. Refers to the parenting style, refers to the manner which parents rear, discipline, and the children. Ito yung mga types niyan, yung authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, uninvolved. Next. Next. Authoritative, kids must follow the rules without exception, di ba? So dito kailangan ng mga bata na sundin yung payo ng magulang nila. Make the rules to enforce the consequence with regards to child's opinion. So kailangan din nila dito na gumawa ng patakaran na ipatupad ng kainat na hindi pinapahalagahan ang lahat. Next is use punishment instead of discipline. There is investing making kids feel sorry to their mistake. Dito, ang mga parusa o opinion ay salip na disiplina ang nangunguna sa paggawa ng naawa sa kanilang mga pagkakamali. Kumbaga, mas maganda yung punishment kaysa sa discipline dahil para mas matuto yung mga batang gumawa. Outcome, children tend to follow rules, must time their obedience comes a price, developing self-imposed problem because their opinions valued, may become hostile or aggressive children to grow become good liars to effort punishment. So dito ang mga bata ay posible din na sundin ang patakaran ng karamihan sa oras ng kanilang pagsunod sa halagang bagay. Developing pagbuo ng problema sa pagpapalagang sarili sapagkat sa kanilang opinion ay may mga palagang maaaring pagalit o agresibo. May become hostile o aggressive dun yon. Ang mga bata ay maaaring lumaki upang maging mabuting o nagiging sinungaling sila sa pagsisip na iwasan ang mga kaparusahan. O, di ba, mas ginugusto nila magsinungaling kaysa maparusahan sila. Authoritative. Authoritative naman, may mga patakarang gumagamit sa isinasaalang-alang din nila yung opinion ng mga anak nila. Yung have the consequence but they take their children's opinion to account. Invest time, the energy preventing behavior problems before they start. So dito gumagamit ng diskarte, positibong disiplina upang mapatibay ang mabuting pag-uugali. Kunyari, 'di ba? Sa pagdidisiplina nila, kunyari inuutusan ng mga anak nila na gumawa ng gawaing bagay, instead na pagalitan sila, bibigyan sila ng reward. Dito naman, use positive discipline strategies to enforce good behavior. Ngayon, mas pinapahalagahan nila, mas gusto nilang bigyan ang anak nila ng mga ng mga biyaya o kaya patimpalak para mas maengganyo ang batang gumawa ng tama. Outcome, children tend to follow the rules much time but their obedience comes a price, developing the self-esteem problem because outcome must likely become responsible of the opinion children to be happy and successful, more likely to be good making decision to evaluating safety and risk. Dito, di ba, ang bata ay malamang na maging responsable sa matatanda na komportable sa pagpapahayag ng kanilang mga opinion. Ang mga bata ay maging posibilidad na maging masaya at matagumpay. Diyan yun. Tapos, mas malamang na maging mahusay ang paggawa ng mga bata at umiwas sa mga panganib. Next. Na naman, permission indulgence set rules but rarely enforce them. So, 'di ba, mas dito pinapahintulutan sila dito. So, magtakda ng mga patakaran ngunit bihirang ipatupad ang mga ito. Don't give out consequence very often. Then may not be those consequence stick might give privilege back if child has to promises to be good. So dito, huwag bigyan ng madalas na mga consequence. Maaring hindi nila gawin ito at kahinatnan nilang maging tamad, tapos maaari nilang ibalik ang privilege o kaya matanggal sa kanilang bata na makaawa o nangangako siyang magiging mabuti, di ba? Usually take on more friend role than a parent role. Karaniwan tumatanggap na higit na papel ng kaibigan kaysa sa maliwanag sa parents, iba mas minsan pinapanigan ng mga bata yung sinasabi ng kaibigan nila kaysa sa magulang nila. Outcome, children more likely struggle academically. Ano dito, sa children may exhibit behavioral problem, they don't appreciate authority and rules. They also higher risk for health problem. So maaaring dito, may kaugaliang mayroon ang kaunting kalaman ng ginagawa ng kanilang mga anak. Madaling magtakda din sila dito at mas mapapahirapan din sila. So, ang exhibit ng behavioral problem, they appreciate authority and rules, they also higher risk. Kumbaga, pag na sobrang ka lagi sa mga punishment sa consequence na binibigay mo sa inyong anak, minsan dun nagiging rebelde ang iyong anak. So, dun magiging riskful na sila. Mas mabilis na, mas laging gumagawa na sila ng mga problema. Uninvolved neglectful tend to have the little knowledge of their children's are doing. So dito, may kaugali ang magkaroon ng kaunting kaalaman sa ginagawa ng kanilang mga anak. Next, tend to set your rules. Madaling magtakda. Kailangan mo ring madali ang pagtakda ng mga ipapagawa. May not give much guidance, nurturing the parental attention. Maaring hindi magbigay ng labis na patunay ng pag-aalaga at pansin ng mga buong gulang. Asahan ng mga bata na itaas ang kanilang mga sarili, kumbaga i-raise up nila, di ba? Hindi dapat laging dinadown nyo yung mga anak nyo. Kumbaga i-push nyo rin sila para umangat, para maging positibo. Outcome, tend to perform poorly in school. Children's like and struggle with self-esteem issues. So yun, di ba? Pag laging nagkaganon, may kaugaling gumanap na hindi maganda sa paaralan, lagi silang, kunyari, nag-guidance sila lagi. Ang mga bata naman. Next, characteristic of family home that can contribute to juvenile delinquency. Berna.
Characteristic of family and home that can contribute to juvenile delinquency. Broken family as a result of death of one or both parents. Ayun yung um,
Yun dun sa death of one both parents, sa broken family, kumbaga kadalasan kaya nagiging broken sila. Minsan dahil patay yung magulang nila, yun, yung isa patay, yung isa rin patay, ganon, yung magulang nila.
Broken family as a result of separation of parent, whether legal or physical. Ito yung paghihiwalay ng magulang. Single parent household as a result of death of one parent.
Diba kaya nga nagiging single parent household, di ba? Sa result of death on parent. Kaya dahil yung isa rin namatay, kung nagiging single parent na siya kunyari. Dito rin yung isa single parent household in the case of having an OFW parent. Diba? Kaya naging single parent kunyari yung isang partner nila nandun nag-OFW, masyado silang malayo sa isa't isa. Ganun. Single parent household is a result of abandonment of one parent, di ba? Kunyari yung nagkaroon ng hiwalayan, inabandona na sila, iniwan sila ng mama ng nanay nila or tatay nila. Dysfunction ng family as a result of addiction by one boy parents, their family member to vice, drugs, alcohol, gambling, etc. Dysfunction of family. So, kumbaga, ang magiging function o dysfunction ng family pag gano'n na lagi, addiction, nagiging addict na yung isa sa family member nila. Dysfunctional family as a result of remarriage of parents, di ba? Pag ganun, kadalasan, yung mga dysfunctional nila, family, anong tawag dito? Naghiwalay. Dysfunctional family as a result of parent being involved of illegal criminal activities. Doon, dahil din nagkakaiwalay ang pamilya minsan dahil yung isa, yung sa pamilya nyo lagi, yung sa magulang nyo, may criminal record o kaya minsan yung iba nakulong na. Dysfunctional family result having atmosphere of love, care, and respect in the home. Diba? Kumbaga, dahil nagdi-dysfunction yung family nyo, hindi gumagana na maayos dahil hindi nila minamahal ang sarili nila. Mas pinapataas nila yung mga pride nila, laging ganun. Kumbaga, mas nauunayan na yung time nila sa ibang bagay kaysa sa bagay na dapat nasa pamilya. Dysfunctional family is result of dome of violence, physical, emotional, sexual occurring in the family. Dito naman yung mga nananakit na yung mga sa pamilya nyo, nagkakasakitan na kayo, hindi lang sa emotionally pati sa physically. Unhappy family due to poverty, 'di ba? Dito sa unhappy family life due to poverty, dahil sa kahirapan na family die to the sickness in the family, 'di ba? Kumbaga namamatay yung dahil sa mga sakit. Improper kind of discipline use of the parents. Kumbaga dito ginagamitan na nila, kumbaga yung pagdidisiplina ng parent, yung nananakit sila sa mga anak nila kaya laging nagkakaganon. Next, Hans.
Presence of any of the circumstances enumerated above may result in the rebellion of the child and other delinquent acts which can take the form of any or all of the following. Ito yung resulta ng ng yung kung wala ka nung yung sinasabi na love, respect, at yung mga pangit na nakikita sa loob ng bahay mo. Ito yung pwedeng maging resulta sa pag-uugali ng isang bata. Una dun yung disrespect of the parents and elders. Yun yung pagkawalan ng respeto sa nakakatanda. Disrespects for teacher and other figures of authority. Absenteeism in school. Yun yung pagliliban sa klase. Failing grades in school. Yun nga. At ang worst dun is yung pagda-drop sa school. Getting involved with drugs, alcoholism, smoking, and gambling. Yun yung diyan na papasok minsan yung may engage ka na sa mga bisyo na tinatawag. Yan, yung entering into ultimately romantic relationship that can be unplanned pregnancies or cohabitation. Yun na nga, yung dahil kulang ka sa parenting, kulang ka sa attention at love, pwedeng dumaan or pwedeng mangyari sa'yo na sa iba mo hanapin yung love na hinahanap mo sa pamilya mo. At yun na nga yung doon na pumapasok yung mabubuntis ka ng maaga at yung ng hindi pa kasal. Being associated with criminal gangs and getting involved in the criminal activities. Ito na yun, yung papasok na gagawahan na ng mga masasama na bagay. Yung parang, yung mapapasok ka na, masasama ka na sa mga maling gawa, ganun. School, considered the second home of a child, with teachers as the second parents institution responsible for the training of young persons, intellectual, moral, as well as social skills which they need for them to grow up as productive, law-abiding, and responsible citizens. That's why the school exercises special parental authority or in loco parents. Ito nga yung sinasabi nila na nagsisimula sa bahay yung yung mga moral na itinuturo dapat na sa bahay muna mapag-aaralan at inaano na lang sa parang dine-develop na lang ito sa school. At nandiyan nga yung tinatawag nila na second parent natin, which is yung mga teachers natin. Ayun, Republic Act number 10410, otherwise known as the Early Years Act or EYA of 2013, recognizes that the ages 0 to 8 are the first crucial stage educational development. Ito yung edad na wala pang interest sa pag-aaral. Yan. This law was approved on March 26, 2013. Next. Community. The term community refers to the different sectors that are believed to play important role in the delinquency of children. It includes the actual neighborhood of the child and the people outside. Yun nga, yung parang yung atmosphere din natin. Malaking responsibilidad din yung nakikita natin sa labas. Yun nga, yung parang sinasabi nila na kung ano yung nakikita ng bata sa matanda is yung parang ang alam nila is tama. Yun. At yung nakikita rin nila sa labas is akala nila yung parang cool, ganon. So, ginagaya nila. Kaya dapat parang binabantayan din natin sila pagdating sa kung sino yung mga tropa. Ganon. Mass media, the most controversial factors that is being blamed by society that was become the culture of mass media today. Ito yung nung bata kami, yung lola namin, hindi kami pinapanood ng mga cartoon like Goku, gano'n. Kasi nakikita doon na nag-aaway sila. So, yung parang nakikita namin, akala na namin is cool yon. So, pag nakikita namin sa mga kapatid namin, sinusuntok namin. Kasi akala namin okay yon. Akala namin mananalo kami, gano'n. Parang natalo namin yung kaaway namin. So, mali pala yon. Yun yung gusto na iparating sa amin ng magulang namin. Kaya, hindi kami hindi kami inano na manood ng mga ganong klaseng mga palabas dati. Lalo na ngayon sa internet natin na kung konting click mo lang, kahit hindi mo i-click, minsan may mga ads na lalabas na pipindutin mo na lang tapos pwede mo na siyang panoorin na hindi natin na parang nasusupervise yung mga ano, yung mga kahit yung mga kapatid natin na bata, hindi na natin sila nababantayan. Nakikita yun sa ano, sa yan, kahit sa magazine nga, yan, meron din. Next.
After 6, Presidential Decree 603, the Child and Youth Welfare Code. Next. PD 603, otherwise known as a Child and Youth Welfare Code, was approved on December 10, 1974. The provision parental authority were amended by Executive Order number 209, otherwise known as the Family Code of the Philippines, which was enacted on July 6, 1987 and became effective on August 3, 1988. The Family Code remains enforceable up to this day. Next. Parental authority includes parental responsibility. Ito yung karapatan at obligasyon ng mga magulang sa kanilang mga anak. Parental Decree 603. Pag ikaw daw ay 21 years old below, ikaw ay considered as a child or minor pa. At the time of the approval of and effective of PD 603, the age of majority in the Philippines was 21 years old. Pero nung RA 6809 was enacted, that the law that covered I lowered the age of majority from 21 to 18 years old. Mas daw sa RA 6809, mas pinababa pa yung pagiging minor of age mo ng 17 years below. This law took effect on December 30, 1989 and remains effective up to this day. Next. So no. Parental authority. Partial potestas has the following. The sum total rights of the parents over the person and property of this child, the exercise of which has no distinction between illegitimate and legitimate child. The father and mother shall exercise jointly just reasonable parental authority and responsibility over legitimate or adopted children. In case of death of either parent, the surviving parent should exercise parental authority. In case of disagreement, the father's decision should prevail unless this a jurisdiction of the court. Next. Parental responsibility. Tayong mga anak ay responsibilidad ng ating magulang, obligasyon ng ating magulang na tayo ay pag-aralin, pakainin at mahalin tayo. Liabilities of parent. parent's guardian is responsible for the damage of injury caused by the child under their authority. Legal custody, pag ang dalawang mag-asawa yung naghiwalay na o 6-year age and below under when responsibility ng isang ina. Pero pag 7 years old na, may karapatan yung bata na pumili kung saan siya sasama or sa mother niya or sa father. Substitutional of parental authority. In case of both parent death. Next na. Guardians is a person who acts for another whom the law regards and as incapable of managing his own affairs. Substitutional affair and authority. In case of the parents that magkakaroon ng kapalit o magte-take ng responsibility ito yung umiidad na ng 21 years old above and pwede na din tito or tita isang ang nag-alaga sa isang bata. Next na. Commencement of personality. The civil, matatawag na na civil personality kapag meron ka ng conception. Ito yung the start of life, the union of sperm cell and egg cell. Also called the process of fertilization. Civil personality. Ito yung kahit kahit mabubuo ka pa lang sa tiyan ng iyong parent, may karapatan ka ng mabuhay at manirahan dito sa mundo. Next. Next na, Gilio. Abortion. The explosion of the fetus from the mother's womb. Ito yung paglaglag ng fetus sa sinapupunan ng isang ina. Criminal abortion. Meron daw tinatawag na intentional or unintentional. Yung intentional, ito yung hindi sinasadyang unintentional yung hindi sinasadyang paglaglag ng ng isang bata. Therapeutic abortion recommended and performed by a certified physician when they are healthy risk and complications not punishable by law. Next. Special categories of children. Dependent child. One who is without a parent, guardian, or custodian. Ito daw yung mga walang magulang na yung mga tito-tito niya na lang daw yung guardian niya. And abandoned child. Tatawag daw natin na abandoned child na kapag 3 months wala na talagang nag-aalaga sa kanya na magulang, wala ring guardians. Next. Neglected child where basic needs have been deliberately unattended or inadequate A third, physical neglect. Child is malnourished, ill-clad without proper shelter. Emotional neglect. When the child is neglected or reduced. Mentally retarded children are socially and occupational incompetent. Classification of mental retardation. Custodial, trainable, educable group. Tapos na. Ay, meron pa. Physical handicapped children. Those who are crippled, deaf, deep, mute, blind. Ito daw yung mga may kapansanan na mga na child, emotionally disturbed children, those who are also not afflicted with insanity or mentally defect renewable to maintain normal social relation with others and the community in general due emotion problems or complex. Disabled children should include mentally retarded, physically handicapped, emotionally disabled, disturbed, and severe mentally children. Tapos na, Gilio. Ay, meron.
Chapter 7, Adoption Law. Adoption. A person of age in a position of full capacity and legal rights may adopt, provided he is in position to support and care for his children, legitimate or illegitimate, in keeping with the means of family. Is a judicial act which creates between two persons in relationship similar to that which result from legitimate paternity of relation. Yung adoption ay hindi lahat ng tao ay pwedeng mag-adopt. Dapat yung mag-a-adopt ay nasa legal age, nasa position of full capacity and legal rights ang mag-a-adopt. At ang pag-a-adopt ay dumadaan sa legal process upang maging legal ang pag-a-adopt sa isang bata. Next tol. Legitimate children. Under Article 163, the filiation of children may be by nature or adoption. Natural filiation may be legitimate or legitimate. Under Article 164, children conceived or born during the marriage of the parents who are legitimate. Children conceived as a result of artificial insemination of the wife with the sperm of husband or that of the donor or both likewise legitimate children of the husband and the wife, provide that both of them authorize or ratified such insemination in written instrument executed and signed by them before the birth of the child. The instrument shall be recorded in civil registry together with the birth certificate of child. Dito sa Article 164, yung pinanganak ang isang bata ay kasal ang ama at ina upang ma-consider na legitimate child. At ito ay gumagawa ng kasunduan na ang apelyido ng bata kapag inadapt ay isang maaaring palitan yung apelyido ng bata at magamit ng bata yung apelyido ng mag-a-adapt sa kanya. Next. Foundling refers to the desert or abandoned infant or the child whose parents, guardian, or relatives are known. Yung founding, tumutukoy sa batang pinabayaan ng kanilang magulang, guardian, or other relatives. Emancipation take place the attainment of majority unless the otherwise provide majority commence at age of 20 years. Yung emancipation naman, ang matutukoy lang yung kung child ay emancipation ay umiidad na ng 18 years above. Next. Definition of terms. Filiation is the status of the child in relation to the father or mother. Dito sa filiation, ito ay status or relation ng bata sa kanyang ama't ina. Paternity is the civil status of father with respect to the child. Dito, ito naman ay tumutukoy sa civil status ng isang o relasyon ng ama sa kanyang anak. Maternity is the civil status of the mother with respect to the child. Ito ay tumutukoy sa civil status or relasyon ng ina sa kanyang anak. Adopter refers to the person who adopting. Ito ay tumutukoy sa tao na nag-adopt sa isang bata. Adoptee refers to the child who's being adopted. Ito ay tumutukoy sa bata na inadopt ng adopter. Matching refers to the judicious pairing of the applicant and the child to promote a mutually satisfying parent relationship. Ito yung matching naman po. Ito yung pag-pairing at pag-promote sa adoptee sa adopter. Ito po ay pagtugma o magiging okay ba yung applicant sa bata o magiging okay ba yung bata sa isang applicant. Simulation of birth is the tampering of the civil registry, making it appear in the birth records who is not her biological mother, causing such child to lose her through identity status. Dito naman sa simulation of birth, pinapalitan yung birth certificate ng bata. Ito yung nangyayari sa ito'y ginagamit sa mabilis na proseso ng pag-a-adapt at pagpapalit ng apelyido ng bata. Noong apelyido ng bata noong in-adapt siya ng adopter. Effects of adoption. First, parental authority. Parental authority pursuant to natural right and duty of the parents over the person and properly their emancipated children. Parental authority and responsibility shall include the caring for and rearing of such of children for civic, consciousness, and efficiency in the development of their moral, mental, physical, character, and well-being. Dito sa parental authority naman po, once na inadapt mo yung isang bata at legally adopted sa isang bata, lahat ng responsibilidad ng isang magulang. Sa isang emancipated children, kailangan ibigay lang lahat ng pangangailangan ng bata, included yung pag-aalaga, pagpapalaki ng maayos, pagpapaaral, pagpapakain, at everything moral, mental, and physical character and well-being. Next, legitimacy. Legitimate child is a child born to parents who are married to each other at the time of her birth, and the adopter child considered as a legitimate of his adopter parents, and therefore he or she shall be the legal rights or legitimate child. One such right, the use of surname of his adopted parents among their. Dito naman po sa legitimacy, dapat ang magulang ng isang bata ay legally marriage bago siya noong ipinanganak pa lang siya. At kung saan po ang at at sa mga adopted child ay may tuturing na legitimate child ang isang adopted parents. Ganun din po yung legal rights ng legitimate child at legitimate rights. Parang parehas lang po sila ng rights. At kasama rin po yung magagamit ng adoptive child yung apelyido ng adopted parents. Next, succession. As a legitimate child, an adopt child is entitled to inherit from adopted parents. In the same way that the adopted parent should also be the legal beneficiary of their child until such the time she marries and the start is on family. Dito naman sa succession, dahil parehas ang karapatan ng legitimate child at adopted child sa kanilang parents, kung ano ang mamanahin ng legitimate child, ganoon din ang mamanahin ng adopted child hanggang magkaroon siya ng asawa at pamilya. Next. Recession of adoption. Under Article 4, Republic Act 8552, refers to the cancellation of decree of adoption issued by the court with effect of nullifying the legal relation established as a result of legal adoption. Dito naman sa recession of adoption, ito po ay tumutukoy sa pagtanggal o pagkansela ng degree of adoption na in-issue ng court. Matatanggal lang po yung rescission of adoption pagka nagpetisyon yung mismong i-adopt na bata laban sa adoptive parents. Katulad ng pag repeated physical, verbal, and maltreatment by adopters, attempt the life adoptee, nakakaranas din yung adopted child na sa kanilang adoptive parents ng sexual or violence. Then inaabandon rin yung inaabandon rin yung adopted child ng kanilang adoptive parents in failure to comply with parental obligation. Next. Dito naman po sa Republic Act number 8552, also known as Domestic Adoption Act of 1998, and amended on February 25, 1998. Applicable for adoption involving Filipino parents or foreigner residing in the Philippines as adoptees. It is understood that the adopters are actual residents of the Philippines with the intent of raising the adoptee in the country. Dito naman po sa under Republic Act 8552, Domestic Adoption Act of 1998, dito po involved po dito yung foreigner at Filipino adopters, parents na nakatira sa Pilipinas. Then yung batang kanilang pwedeng maging adoptees ay dapat Pilipino rin. At kaya din mag-supply at kayang din bigyan ng pangangailangan bilang magulang, kailangan mabigyan din ng pangangailangan ng pangunahing pangangailangan ng isang bata. Age requirements of adopters. adopters must be of legal age and at least 16 years old older than adoptee. If the adopter is foreign, he must be residing in the Philippines for at least 3 years consecutive. Dito naman po sa age requirements of adopters, kailangan nasa legal age na yung mag-a-adopt and at least 16 years older than sa kanilang i-aampunin. Pagka naman po, pagka foreigner naman yung mag-a-adopt, kailangan nakatira siya ng 3 years consecutive sa Pilipinas. Then, age of requirements of adoptees. Adoptees must be below 18 years old. Siyempre po kailangan po yung aampunin kailangan 18 to below. Pag kasi umabot po siya ng 18, nasa legal age po siya, parang kaya nang tugunan yung sarili niya. And other requirements for adopters. As not be convicted in any crime involving the moral turpitude. Dito po sa number 1, kailangan wala siyang criminal record yung mag-a-adopt. Emotional and psychological capable of caring of children. Kailangan po may emotional and psychological capable para alagaan ng isang inaampon. In position of to support and care for his children in keeping with the means of the family. Yun nga po, kailangan bilang isang adopters, kailangan bigyan ng suporta at pag-aalaga na kailangan ibigay sa kanilang mga inaampon. Number 4, for foreign residing in the Philippines, her country of origin must be diplomatic relation with the Philippines. Tulad nga po kanina sinabi ko, kailangan kung ang adopters ay isang foreigner, kailangan po talaga na kailangan nakatira sa Pilipinas ng 3 years consecutive. And supervised trial custody, at least 6 months. Kailangan po, sa supervised trial custody, kailangan kapag ikaw yung mag-aampon ng isang bata, sa loob ng 6 na buwan, isusupervise ka ng korte kung magiging maganda ba ang trato mo sa bata na inampun mo. Then kung maganda naman yung yung record mo under 6 months na pag-supervise ng korte, ibibigay na sa iyo yung bibigay na sa iyo ng korte yung pagiging legally child adopters. Yun. Then under Republic Act number 8043, also known as Inter-Country Adoption Act of 1995, took effect in June 7, 1995. Adoption involving foreigners or Filipino residing abroad as adopters and Filipino children adoptees who will reside outside the Philippines. Dito naman po sa Public Act number 8043, Inter-Country Adoption of Act of 1995. Ito po yung involved din po talaga rito yung yung foreigner or Filipino na adopters. Kung gusto nilang mag-adopt ng bata, kailangan Pilipino. Then nakatira rin yung bata sa Pilipinas. And then kung matapos man nila na ma-legal process yung pag-a-adopt, pwede na nilang dalhin sa ibang bansa kung saan nakatira yung adopters. And age requirements for adopters. Adopters must be at least 27 years old and less than 16 years old than adoptee. Dito po kailangan yung adopters must be 27 years old and less than 16 years older than sa kanilang aampunin. Age requirements of adoptees. Adoptees must be below in 15 years old. Doon po sa Republic Act 8552, yung adoptees, yung age requirement of adoptees 18 below. Dito naman po sa Republic Act 8043, iba naman po 15 years old below. Then other requirements for the adopters must possess of the qualification and non-disqualification provided under the Philippine law. 2. Eligible to adopt under the national law. Supervised custody, at least 6 months. Ganon din po sa pares po sa Republic Act 8552. Kailangan ma-supervise muna ng korte within 6 months para kung maganda man yung maging pagtrato niya sa pag-ampun sa bata, yun, bibigay na yung legally custody pa sa sa bata. Then under sa Republic Act 9523, the law that giving DSWD the sole authority to issue the certification declaring the child legally available for adoption. Amended provision of RA 8552 and RA 8043 approved on March 12, 2019. Dito naman po dati in the past, the authority of giving certification of declaring child legally available for adoption is ang korte ang nagbibigay. But now, DSWD na kasi sila na po yung may hawak ng authority para magbigay ng certification para may declare ang bata na legally available for adoption. Child legally available refers to a child whose favor certification was the DSWD, she legally available for adoption after the fact of abandonment of neglect has been proven through the submission pertinent document or one who voluntarily committed by his parent of legal guardian. Yun nga po, yung DSWD nga talaga yung magbibigay ng certification of declaring a child legally available for adoption. Next. Thank you.
Chapter 8, Foster Care. Foster care is a provision of planned temporary substitute parental care to a child by a foster parent. Sa foster care, dito, ang meaning nito, sabihin, dito pumapasok yung kalinga ng isang magulang sa isang bata. So sa foster care merong dalawang tao na kailangan namumuo sa foster care. Una dito yung foster parent. Yung foster parent and person duly licensed by DSWD to provide foster care. So sabi dito, para daw matawag na isang foster parent, kailangan duly licensed siya ng DSWD. So sa pangalawa naman, meron namang foster child placed under foster care. RA number 10165, Foster Care Act of 2012 enacted on June 11, 2012. So dito sa Republic Act number 10165, dito pinapalakas yung Foster Care Act of 2012 kung saan pinapayagan ng ang isang foster parent na mangalaga sa isang foster child. Ang dito. Next. So para matawag siya na isang foster child, the law enumerates children in which circumstances may warrant children to be placed under foster care. A child who is abandoned, surrendered, neglected, dependent, or orphaned. Sabihin sa una, para daw matawag na para mailagay natin na ang isang bata ay kabilang sa foster children, kailangan daw ay surrendered, neglected, dependent, or orphan. Ibig sabihin, dito, yung bata, sabihin na pabayaan, na ulila na, ganyan. So, pangalawa, a child who is victim of sexual, physical, or any other form of abuse or exploitation. Pangalawa, dito, yun nga, yung mga bata na biktima ng pang-aabuso, ganyan. Pangatlo, a child with a special needs. Pangapat, a child whose family members are temporarily or permanently unable or unwilling to provide the child with adequate care. Panglima, a child awaiting adoptive replacement and who would have to be prepared for family. Pang-anim, a child whose adoption has been disrupted. Ibig sabihin dito naman sa number 6, dito, na hindi natuloy yung pagkaka-adapt sa bata. Ganyan. Pang-pito, a child who needs long-term care and close family ties but who cannot be placed for domestic adoption. Next. A child who is under socially difficult circumstances such as but not limited as street child, a child in armed conflict or victim of child labor or trafficking. Kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, biktima siya ng ng trafficking. Dito sa pang-siyam, a child who committed a minor offense but is released on recognizance or who is in a custody supervision or whose case is dismissed, and a child who is in need of special protection as assessed by a social worker and agency of the DSWD. So ayun daw, yung kailangan daw ng isang foster child is dito, ma-assess siya ng social worker ng DSWD. So dito naman sa foster parents, as with adoption, any person who wants to be a foster parents to a child must meet the qualification provided the law, and these are. So ito dito daw, para ma-qualify ka nila bilang isang foster parents, kailangan he must be a legal age. So kailangan nasa tamang edad ka na. He must be at least 16 years older than child unless the foster parent is a relative. So ayun daw, ibig sabihin, kung kung yung bata 10 years old, ganyan, kailangan yung edad mo nasa 26 pataas unless kung kamag-anak ka ng bata. Tapos he must be genuine interest. Ibig sabihin may mabuti siyang interest sa bata. Ibig sabihin parang gusto niya talagang tulungan yung bata, willing talaga siyang palakihin yung bata. Must have healthy and harmonious relationship with each family member. Ibig sabihin kailangan yung foster parent marunong siyang i-handle yung relasyon niya sa bata. Good moral character, ayun. Physically and mentally capable. Ibig sabihin, marunong siyang physically and mentally kaya niyang kontrolin, kaya niyang unawain yung bata. Must have sufficient resources to be able to provide the family needs. So, ayun. Kailangan daw ng isang foster parents is may sapat siyang pangkabuhayan para mabuhay yung bata. And dito, nakalagay dyan sufficient resources. Tapos dito naman, must be willing to further home or be trained on knowledge. Must not already have the maximum number of children under his foster care at the time of application or word. Next. Termination of foster care or replacement. So dito naman, kung hanggang saan natatapos yung termination ng foster care sa foster parent sa isang bata. Return of the child to biological parents, yung pagsauli ng foster parents pagsauli ng foster parents sa foster child sa totoong niyang magulang. So letter B, placement for adoption of the child. Dito naman piniplace na talaga nilalagay na talaga yung bata bilang ipapa-adapt na talaga yung bata. Ganyan. Kasi ang pagkakaiba ng adoption sa foster care, yung foster care kasi temporary lang siya. Hindi katulad ng dito ng adoption, permanent siya, tsaka legal process kasi yung adoption. So letter C, death of the child, pagkakamatay ng bata. Tapos letter D, death of a foster parents, ay naman yung pagkakamatay ng foster parents. Letter E, exploitation of FPA. Letter F, in all cases where placement becomes prejudicial to the welfare of the child. So dito letter B, additional tax exemption for dependents. Declare the foster child as dependent and thus they would enjoy additional exemption in the amount of 25,000 from the taxable income. So ayun, may So ayun, pagka yung bata daw dineclare na foster child, yung bata daw halimbawa may ano na siya, additional exemption in the amount of 25,000 from their taxable income. Next. Government assistance to foster children. Foster child subsidy. A foster child through the agency shall be entitled to a monthly subsidy from DSWD, subject to existing government auditing rules and regulation. The subsidy is primarily aimed at supporting the expenses of the child to lessen financial burden on the foster parent. So ayun nga, yung foster child ay merong subsidy. Ibig sabihin may natatanggap na may natatanggap na pera galing sa DSWD para kahit paano mabawasan yung financial burden ng isang foster parent doon sa foster child. Next.
Chapter 9. Juvenile Chapter 9, Juvenile Welfare Law. Next. Welfare can be defined as well-doing or well-being in any respect, enjoyment of health, and common blessing of life, exempting from any evil or calamity. Accordingly, children are subject of quite a number of laws that were enacted, promote, support, and protect their welfare. So yun, yung welfare, no? Dito yung makikita yung kapakanan or karapatan ng isang bata. Aside from PD 603 or the Child Youth Welfare Code, which protects the welfare of the child and youth therein. Republic Act 76 then, other known as the Special Protection of Children Against Child Abuse, Exploitation, and Discrimination Act. However, since a passage in 1992, several laws have already been enacted and have affected, amended, certainly provision of RA 7610. Okay, ito po yung mga amended ng RA 76 din. So, yung una is Working Children, amended by RA 7658 and RA 9231, while the provision of child trafficking has been supplemented by RA 9208, other known as Anti-Trafficking in Person Act of 2003, the Child Pornography Act of 2019, amended provision of obscene publication in indecent show of RA 7610. So, yun nga, hindi lang yung pambata yung batas na to, no? Kasama din sa violence against a woman, no? Ito nga, another important legislation for protection of child in RA 9262, other known as Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004. So mamaya papalawakin natin yung RA 9262 na yan. So next. Ito na nga. Punta tayo sa RA 7610. So, Special Protection of Children Against Child Abuse, Exploitation, and Discrimination Act approved on June 17, 1992. So, this law is also commonly referred as an anti-child abuse. Certain provision of this law has already amended by recent law. So, yun na nga. But some portion of this law remain enforceable up to this day. So, yun nga, hanggang ngayon, napapatupad pa rin. Ito, kasama dito yung provision of the child prostitution, child trafficking, child abuse, and child as a zone of peace. So, child abuse. So, pasok siya sa Section 3 of 7610, Article 7, Republic Act 7610. Child abuse refers to maltreatment, whether habitual or not, of the child. So, form of child abuse, cruelty, refers on any words or deeds which debase, degrades, or demands to instincting word and dignity of the child as a human being. So, ito example nito yung lagi mo silang word parang minumura, ganyan. Pinagsasabihan ng hindi maganda, like ampun ka, ganun. Siyempre, nakababa ng dignity ng isang tao yan, no? So, next, physical injury, yan, by the use of physical contact. Example nito, siyempre, laceration, wounds, fracture, at marami pa iba. So, psychological injury by means of emotional abuse, ganun. Means harms to child psychological or intellectual functioning, neglect, failure to provide for the reason of other than the puberty, these basic needs of the child such as food or etc. O hindi mo nabibigay yung pangangailangan ng isang bata like pagkain, damit, bahay, maraming pang iba. So, sexual abuse includes the employment, use, inducement of coercion of a child to age in sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct, molestation, prostitution, and incest with the children. So, next. Yan. Child prostitution. So, yan. Article 3 of RA 7610. So, sabi dito, children, whether male or female, who for money, profit, or any other consideration or due to coercion or influence of any adult, syndicate, or group indulge in sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct are deemed to be a children exploited in prostitution and sexual penalty, Andito yung mga criminal liable for children's prostitution. So, those who engage in a or promote, facilitate, or induce child prostitution, such as those acting procurer to the child prostitution. Yun, tas next, yung parents nila na parents, guardian, or relative knowingly allowed to court their children or war into prostitution, Criminal liable din yan, Pag yung parents mo or guardians or relative na alam, sila yung nagtutulak sa'yo na pumasok diyan sa prostitution. So, those who commit the act of sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct with a child exploited in prostitution such as client of the prostitution, syempre. Yung unang-una dyan, yung client ng batang nag-prostitute, Yung unang-unang liable sa crime na yan, Sunod, those who derive profit or advantage therefrom such as. So yun, yung kumikita doon din sa ginagawa ng bata, like magulang, ganun. Siyempre, sa third, manager or owner of the establishment where the prostitution takes place. So, liable din yung mga manager or owner doon, ng pinasukan niyang bar or etc. So, the penalty ng child prostitution is reclusion temporal to reclusion perpetua. Pero, however, a client under 12 years old or 11 pababa, the law na, yung law na ipapataw sa liable doon sa crime na yon is child prostitution. Hindi na siya papatong sa RA 7610. Doon na siya sa RPC of 2668 for rape and 336 for lascivious kung ang bata ay nga less than 12, no? Sige, next. Children as a zone of peace. Children shall not be the object of attack in situation of armed conflict and shall be entitled to special respect. They shall be protected from any form of threat, assault, torture, or other cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment. No? Ayan nga, yung mga zone of peace ng children, no? Children shall not be recruited to become the member of armed forces. Siyempre, i-recruit mo agad, bata pa. Hindi pa nila kaya yung training, no? Of in its civilian units, nor be allowed to take part in fighting or used to guide security or sides. So next, last, child shall be given priority during evaluation as a result of armed conflict. No? So sa Republic Act number 9208, so is Anti-Trafficking in Person Act of 2003, an act to institute policies to eliminate trafficking in persons, especially women and children, establishing the necessary institutional mechanics for the prostitution and support of trafficked person, providing penalties for each violation and for other, no? Pero yung RA 9208 na yan, na-amended na agad yan ng expanded Anti-Trafficking in Person Act of 2012, no? Ng RA 10365. So next. And trafficking in person. Ito lang, madali lang to. As the recruitment, transportation, transfer or harboring or deceit of a person with or without the victim consent or knowledge within across national borders by means of threat or use of force to other form of coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power, or of position. So yun nga, na parang pinilit siya na pumasok sa isang bagay na ganun. Qualified trafficking. So, magiging qualified trafficking lang siya pag yung ibinenta ang bata, no? O kaya pinagpalit ng bata ang bata. When the adoption is effect through RA 8043 or Inter-Country Act and said the adoption is for the purpose of prostitution, no? Yun na nga, papasok lang yung qualified trafficking pag bata yung pinagpalit o ibinenta, then pag yung bata inadopt para lang ipasok sa prostitution o kaya pornography, sexual explosion, for slavery, involuntary service, or death bondage, no? Doon lang papasok yung qualified trafficking, no? Next. Terms to remember. Ayan. child refers to a person below 18 years old. So, ibig sabihin, below 18, 17, pababa, ganun. Or one who is over 18. But, yung over 18 na yon na is unable to fully take care of their protect him or herself, no, from abuse. So ito papasok dito yung may mga mental disability or physical disability, no, or may mga sakit sa utak, kumbaga. Ganun, no. Prostitution refers to an act, transaction, scheme or design involving the use of person by another for sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct in exchanging for money, profit, or any other consideration, no? Ayun, yung prostitution, while kasama yung sexual intercourse na, syempre, hindi lang sila mapag-sexual intercourse ng walang kapalit, no? Hindi masabing prostitution yun. So, ang prostitution kailangan may kapalit na money or kahit ano pang iba pang consideration, no? Forced labor and slavery refers to instruction of work or service from any person by means of enticement, violence, intimidation, or threat, use of force or coercion, including deprivation of freedom, abuse, authority, or moral ascendance, and debt, bondage, or deception. Yun na nga. Next. Sex tourism. So, yan. Refers to a program organized by travel and tourist-related establishment and individual which consists of tourist package or activity, utilizing and offering escort and sexual service as enticement for tourist, no? Yun na nga yung mga tourist na naghahanap lang ng paglilibangan ba yung tawag doon? Or sexual intercourse, no, sa mga Pilipina or iba pang lugar, no. Syempre may kapalit din 'yun. May profit na kikita din yung babae or yung lalaki, di ba? Or kahit anong consideration, ganyan. So, sexual exploitation, participation by person in prostitution or production of pornographic material as a result of subjective to the threat, deception, coercion, abduction, force, abuse of authority, death, bondage, from or through abuse of victim vulnerability. So, death bondage refers to pleading by the debtor of his or her personal service or labor or those of a person under his or her control as security or payment for a debt. So, death bandage, paikliin na lang natin, ginagawa kang pambayad, no? Ginagawa kang pambayad. Pornography refers to any representation through publication, exhibition, cinematography, incident shows, information technology, or whatever means of person engaged in real or stimulated explicit sexual activities or any representation of sexual part of a person. So, familiar naman tayo lahat dyan sa pornography. So, next na po. Ito na nga po, yung RA Act number 9262 or Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2014. An act of defining violence against women and their children, providing from prospective measure for victim, prescribing penalties therefore and for other purposes. So terms to remember, violence against women and their children. So dito yung papasok yung para sa mga abusadong asawa, tsaka kamag-anak o magulang or laging binubugbog yung asawa, laging binubugbog yung anak, ta's inaabusado ng magulang or kahit ng kamag-anak, 'no? Physical violence, siyempre physical contact, sexual violence by means of sexual intercourse, economic abuse. So yun, example nito, pinagtatrabaho ang babae, 'no? Parang kumbaga, yung babae yung nagbubuhay sa lalaki, 'di ba pangit naman nun, 'di ba? So next, psychological violence, so by means of emotional abuse, gano'n. So battery, an act inflicting physical harm upon the woman or her child resulting to the physical and psychological or emotional distress. Yun na nga. Stalking, international act by a person who knowingly and without lawful jurisdiction follows the woman or her child under surveillance directly or indirectly. So next. Yan. Republic Act 9775 or Anti-Child Pornography Act of 2009. An act defining the crime of child pornography, prescribing penalties therefore and for other purpose. So terms to remember: child pornography, any representation, whether visual or audio or written combination, therefore by electronic, mechanical, digital, optical, magnetic, any other means of child engaged or involved in real or stimulated explicit sexual activities. So, yun. So, luring, ang act communicating by means of computer system, which with a child or someone who offender believes to be an act of the purpose of facilitating the commission of sexual activity or production of any child pornography. So, yun na nga, by means of computer system, no? Funding, ito naman, by means of promotion or representing of distribution through any means, any material or purported material that is intended to cause another to believe that the material is purported material contains any form of child pornography regardless of the actual comment of material or purpose material, no? Next. And Republic Act number 6972. Ito yung known as the Barangay Level Total Development and Protection of Child Act. So, an act establishing daycare centers, no, in every barangay instituting therein a total development and protection of children program appropriating funds therefore and other purposes, no. Yun. Filipino children up to 6 years of age deserve the best care of and intention at family and community levels. Towards this end, there is hereby established a daycare center in every barangay with a total development and protection of children program as a provide in this act instituted in every barangay daycare, no. Ginawa nila to na para mas mas matuto yung isang bata at mabigyan ng mas magandang attention. Mabigyan ng mas magandang alaga yung isang bata ng family niya, di ba? So, next. And Republic Act number 8370 or Children Television Act of 1997. Terms to remember, again, yun ulit yun, all person below 18 years old or 18 above, basta he or she have mental illness, ganun, or physical disability, ganun. Child television refers to a program, other material broadcast on television that are specifically designed for viewing by children, no? Kaya yun yung sa TV natin laging may G, PG, SPG, no? Pagkapangit kasi pagpapanoodin mo ng SPG, tapos may patayan, hindi ma-adapt agad ng tayo, no? Next, child-friendly program refers to program that is specifically designed for viewing by children. Child viewing hours yon. Siyempre, dapat may oras lang din ang panonood ng bata. Hindi lang pwedeng puro TV. Dapat kailangan din may iba't ibang activities na ginagawa sa isang buong araw ang isang bata. So next, Republic Act 9231, law prohibiting the worst form of child labor, mandatory law RA 7610 and RA 7658 amended provision of 7610 regarding working children approved on December 1923, no? Kailangan work permit of working children, kailangan may permit siya ng DOLE ng working student bago siya i-employ, no? Ito yung mga children below 15 years old of age not be employed except when a child works directly under the sole responsibility of his parents. So, ibig sabihin na siya na lang yung inaasahan sa pamilya, no? Where a child employment participation in public entertainment or information through cinema, theater, radio, yan. Katulad nito, mga artista, mga bata, no? Kailangan nilang approve ng DOLE bago sila magtrabaho sa mga artista, no? Sa isang sine, no? It is the duty of the employer to submit the DOLE a report all children employed by him, no? If domestic is under 16 years of age, head of the family shall give him or her opportunity to complete at least elementary education, no? So kailangan nilang makapagtapos muna ng at least elementary education, no? Next. And employment contract of working children. The contract shall be signed by working child, parent, or legal guardian with the express agreement of the child. So kailangan may agreement, may permit ng magulang bago siya magtrabaho. So yung working hours. If the child is under 16, may work maximum 4 hours a day, 20 hours a week. May work between 6 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the evening, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. No? If the child is 15 under 18, no, may work 8 hours to 40 hours a week, and may work between 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the evening, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So yun po. Thank you po sa pakikinig.
That's all, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.